The crown has just drawn a line in gold, and Meghan Markle is standing on the wrong side of it. Because what started as whispers about tax filings has exploded into a transatlantic storm, and now the heirs, the royal household, and Prince William himself have stepped into the arena. This isn't a quiet audit, this is a royal reckoning. London, February 11th, 2026. The air outside Marlborough House wasn't just cold, it was electric, cameras locked, reporters frozen. And then Prince William stepped forward with a composure that didn't just signal concern, it signaled separation. He didn't stutter, he didn't soften it. He made one thing crystal clear. The crown does not endorse, finance, or associate itself with Archewell or its commercial arms. Let that sink in. This was not palace gossip. This was institutional disavowal. Behind the scenes, the drama had already ignited days earlier. On February 9, 2026, the IRS formally launched its inquiry into Archewell Foundation and its associated ventures. The trigger? A quote Meghan delivered at a high-profile forum implying Archewell represented a legacy of service the Crown instilled in us. To regulators, that wasn't poetic language. It was potentially misleading representation. And once U.S. authorities started digging, what they found wasn't flattering. Within 48 hours of receiving the heirs' request, the Royal Trust authorized a high-level digital summit with the heirs' International Tax Crimes Unit. That is not a casual Zoom call. That is a red alert compliance operation. Palace lawyers came armed. They provided documentation confirming that no sovereign grant funds, no palace stipends, no charitable endowments were ever allocated to Archewell. Internal warnings from 2024 about unauthorized royal adjacent imagery were handed over. Licensing records showed zero authorization for commercial use of Sussex titles and fundraising or branding. An heirs agent reportedly described the cooperation as the most candid cross-border nonprofit audit collaboration they had seen from a historical institution. Translation? The palace was not going down with this shit. And then came February 16, a confidential in-person summit at Clarence House between Prince William and senior heirs official Peter Howard. 2 hours, no ceremony, no smiles, just operational scrutiny. The agenda? Brutal. Improper use of the Duchess of Sussex title in U.S. tax documents. False implications of royal endorsement in charitable solicitations. Commercial packaging mimicking royal gift aesthetics. Communications history between palace and Sussex representatives. This wasn't about sibling rivalry. This was about reputational containment. At one point, when asked about reputational harm, William reportedly responded that the royal family cannot be reduced to a marketing motif, and that they are stewards of constitutional legacy, not participants in narratives crafted for private monetization. That line hit like a cannon blast, because at the center of this firestorm sits Archewell's 2024 tax disclosures. Total donations, $2.1 million. Total expenses, $5.1 million. Actual charitable grants, $1.25 million. Salaries for 2 employees, $913,000. Administrative and security costs, $2.9 million. More than 75% of the budget went to overhead, not philanthropic activity. For a foundation publicly branded as values-driven and impact-focused, that imbalance raised eyebrows and then it raised alarms. One heirs official noted the cost structure resembled a private enterprise more than a nonprofit. But the most explosive twist wasn't just in the foundation, it was in the lifestyle brand. As ever. Launched in 2024 with fruit preserves, candles, teas, and decorative items, the brand leaned heavily into visual echoes of royal tradition. Stylized crowns, serif fonts resembling palace stationery, phrases like by royal ritual and inspired by legacy. Critics said it looked like Windsor gift wrap with a price tag. Initial press claimed sellouts. Headlines celebrated immediate success. But forensic data told a different story. Inventory levels revealed over $23 million in unsold stock sitting in North American warehouses, 137,000 fruit preserve boxes, 44,000 jars of Windsor orange marmalade, 80,000 floral sachets. During a birthday promotion in January 2026, only 26 units sold in 24 hours. 26. That is not a launch, that is a collapse. Meanwhile, the heirs concluded that Archewell's June 2025 shift into a fiscal sponsorship model appeared deliberately timed to reduce public financial scrutiny amid declining donations donations and mounting media pressure. The memo stated the restructuring pattern was consistent with entities attempting to conceal operational deficiencies. Concealment, not efficiency. And once the palace saw where this was heading, the firewall strategy became urgent. On February 11, William's public statement laid out what insiders are calling the institutional separation doctrine. 3 pillars: no implication of royal endorsement for commercial purposes, nonpartisan, non-commercial constitutional neutrality, the right to issue legal and reputational disavowals when private ventures exploit royal association. Hours later, a document titled Statement of Institutional Separation, Archewell and the Crown was distributed to international regulators. This wasn't family tension. This was global damage control. By midday, headlines exploded. The Guardian, The Times, The New York Times, all framing it as a historic declaration. Behind palace walls, preparations reportedly began for a Privy Council review of Sussex title usage. And here's where it gets even more combustible. The IRS has requested records showing Meghan's approval of branded materials bearing the Duchess title, contracts where the title may have been used to secure partnerships, and statements implying active royal association. And if regulators determine that symbolic royal weight was leveraged to secure financial advantage, that shifts this from messy optics to potential legal exposure. As retail partners suspended distribution agreements and warehouse operators refused further inventory storage, the phrase regulators began using echoed across both sides of the Atlantic's strategic collapse of credibility. And through it all, William's tone never wavered. When asked whether he regretted the personal toll on his brother, he reportedly replied, "There is no confusion about duty, only disappointment that it has come to this." That wasn't cruelty. That was finality, because this saga is no longer about branding missteps or failed marmalade. It's about whether inherited symbolism can be monetized without consequence. And right now, the Crown has made one thing terrifyingly clear. The line has been drawn. And once that line was drawn, the aftershocks did not stay in London. They rippled straight across the Atlantic into federal offices, nonprofit watchdog circles, and boardrooms that once proudly displayed Archewell partnerships. Because what had started as questions about filings and phrasing was now morphing into something far more dangerous, an active fraud review. Following the Clarence House summit, the heirs formally escalated scrutiny of both Archewell and the parent entity behind as ever. At the center of the legal storm were 2 interconnected issues: unauthorized use of royal titles for leverage and brand misrepresentation that could mislead donors and consumers. And this is where it became explosive. The Royal Trust's legal office reportedly issued a cease and desist to Evermark Collective Incorporated, the Delaware-registered parent company of Meghan's lifestyle brand. The allegations: packaging and promotional language mimicking royal visual identity, use of stylized crowns, serif fonts similar to Buckingham Palace communications, and royal blue and gold color palettes historically associated with monarchical representation. This wasn't subtle distancing anymore. This was symbolic excommunication. Simultaneously, the palace submitted formal documents to U.S. charity registries asserting that no endorsement, official or implied, had ever been granted to Archewell. Repeated requests to discontinue royal-adjacent imagery, according to internal records, had been ignored or selectively interpreted. That phrase, selectively interpreted, says everything. Because what the palace now frames as reputational misrepresentation, regulators may frame as something far sharper. The IRS has reportedly requested records showing Meghan's approval of branded materials bearing the Duchess title, contracts where that title may have influenced negotiations, and donor communications referencing royal legacy. And while the Duchess of Sussex title remains ceremonially hers, Prince William publicly emphasized a critical distinction. Titles bestowed within the Crown are symbolic duties held in public trust, not trade assets. That single clarification may become the cornerstone of the Privy Council review now underway. Behind closed doors, legal advisors are reportedly examining whether sustained commercial deployment of a royal title in connection with nonprofit misrepresentation could constitute breach of public trust. This is no longer about optics. This is about constitutional risk. And while the legal gears turn in Westminster, the financial picture in America continues to darken. IRS auditors confirmed that more than 75% of Archewell's 2024 expenditures were not mission-related. Watchdog organizations began updating profiles to reflect pending federal audit status. Charity Clarity analysts describe the foundation as a case study in celebrity philanthropy gone structurally off course. Meanwhile, As Ever quietly went dark. Its official website listed only a maintenance page. Retailers suspended distribution agreements. Warehouse operators reportedly refused further storage over non-payment concerns. Over $23 million in unsold inventory remained stranded across North America. The regulator's phrase echoed again, strategic collapse of credibility. Inside palace corridors, however, the strategy was not emotional, it was codified. A revised royal communications code now mandates disclaimers for non-working royals engaging in external ventures. A digital registry is tracking unauthorized uses of monarchical terminology. Draft policy language titled the Civic Clarity Act is being finalized to regulate title usage and symbolic replication in commerce. 3 core pillars now guide the doctrine: no title without duty, no symbol without sanction, no affiliation without fact. That isn't just a press line, that's a structural firewall. And as February moved forward, speculation intensified around whether the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles could face suspension or revocation if statutory misuse is substantiated. Legal experts have reportedly examined historical precedent, including principles derived from the titles deprivation framework, to assess constitutional authority. A final ruling is expected in March 2026. For Meghan, the stakes are no longer abstract. Potential civil penalties, revocation of nonprofit status, subpoenaed communications during discovery, brand blacklisting by major retail partners, and perhaps most devastating of all, institutional disavowal that is now documented, distributed, and internationally acknowledged. Because this crisis has forged something irreversible inside the House of Windsor. Prince William's intervention did not lash out. It did not escalate theatrically. It documented, clarified, and separated. In private remarks later circulated, he reportedly stated that the world must know there is a line and that clarity is now the monarchy's shield. And that shield is no longer theoretical. It is operational. The Joint Compliance Memorandum with HM Treasury confirmed that the investigation would now proceed solely against Archewell and associated entities, with the Crown fully cleared of entanglement. That sentence alone rewrites the narrative. For years, the Sussex brand traded on proximity, to palace corridors, to legacy, to symbolism. But proximity without permission is now under forensic light. What began as soft distancing after 2020 has evolved into legally codified repudiation. And as this saga continues to unfold across legal, symbolic, and institutional fronts, one reality stands unshaken. The Crown has defined its boundary. The Ears has defined its inquiry. And Meghan Markle's ventures now sit squarely between those two forces. This was never just about marmalade jars or monogram candles. It was about whether royal identity can be repackaged as private enterprise without consequence. And now, the consequences are no longer hypothetical. They are procedural, they are documented, and they are still unfolding.